What's up, ladybots and gentle droids? I am Dylan, the Technogiz guy, and today we're going old school. And I'm slamming the phone on some people. So, we're over here at the bench. I got the phone here. So, it comes in this little box. It's my hand for scale, so this thing is not massive. In fact, when I pull it out, we'll compare it to the size of my current phone. So, I already cut the tape, so I'm just gonna pull this out. Phone here is in plastic. Pull that out. So, flip phone. It's got a protector on there and tells you some things about the phone. I can already tell this does not have a battery in it because this thing feels real light. So, let's put this over here. This is the safety precautions and the Espanol safety precaution. And then this is the quick start guide that I am not gonna read. You get a USB-C cable. Hey, TCL, you one-upped Apple. Man, look at that. Is there a brick in here too? Oh my Lord, there's a brick. Look at this. Look, we get a little USB brick and a USB-A to C cable. Apple could never. Well, they could actually if they wanted to, but they're too busy being greedy. 5 volt at 1 amp. So we're not winning any awards with this charging brick, but again, this little guy probably doesn't need too much. And it came with a brick and a cable. Then of course in the bottom we have the battery. So let's get the battery out of here. We got a 4.35 lithium ion. Yeah. We got a 4.35 volt lithium ion battery, 1,850 milliamp hours, giving us 7.03 watt hours. I hope this phone has good battery life. Because even though it's USB-C, I'm hoping I don't actually have to charge it too much. So there's a little tab down here at the bottom to get the back off. So I'm just gonna stick my fingernail in there and kind of pull that off. Let's take a look at the back here. Let me zoom in. So you have a SIM card slot that looks to be a micro SIM, not a nano SIM. That's okay, I have adapters. And then you have a microSD card slot. So I'm absolutely going to stick a microSD card in here because I plan on using Spotify on here. So I do wish to have a little bit extra storage. I believe this guy has 1 gig of RAM and 8 gigs of storage, so not winning any awards. Here's my Galaxy S23. This is my current daily driver phone. And if I take this TCL Flip 2, you can see it's a good bit smaller. Give me a second, guys. I'm gonna pull my SIM out of this and see if I can get it into this phone. Okay, so my SIM card did in fact fit in here without an adapter, so this is in fact a nano SIM slot. Cool, good to go. So I got a little SanDisk 64 gig SD card. 64 gig should be plenty for the music and stuff that I'm gonna throw on here. And it looks like it just slides in. Yep, just slots in like that. So I'll get that close up so you can see the SD card is not fully seated. It literally is just making contact with the pins, and then my SIM card is seated in there. This is a T-Mobile SIM card. Everything on Amazon said that this should support T-Mobile. That being said, Amazon also said that it was a micro USB, so I was expecting micro USB, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised to see that this is a USB-C port. Actually, hang on, look at this. So I'm just now realizing that if I looked at it closer. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera. The cutout is absolutely a micro USB cutout. They must have retrofitted USB-C to this because everyone prefers that, which props to TCL. That's nice because honestly, for 50 bucks, they could have left micro USB and that would have been acceptable, but it looks like they filed that out a little bit and just put a C port in. But I can tell that is a micro USB cutout. So let's get the battery in. Is it not going to turn on? There we go. Had to hold it a little bit longer. So choose a language. It does not look like Android. English. Just popped up with this switching the carrier. Please wait. It's probably detecting my SIM. I was about to put it on my Wi-Fi, and I'm going to put it on my guest Wi-Fi because my other 2 networks that I have both have symbols in them, and I'm not typing symbols on a T9 dialer. Actually, I don't even think some of those symbols exist on the T9 dialer. Yeah, this is definitely Android, but I'm gonna bet it's like Android 12, and that's gonna be pushing it. Okay, I got it connected to my guest Wi-Fi. We're gonna hit next. Skip the accessibility stuff. I'm gonna agree to their terms blindly. It did recognize my T-Mobile SIM, so that's cool. That's a good sign. Let me just real quickly make sure that this has service by making a call. And my phone is ringing. Okay, so it clearly works. Let me make sure, just to be safe here, that I can send a text message. So I'm filming this on my phone. Been using this for 12 hours. It's about 8 a.m. I started this video last night at 7 p.m. For 6 hours I was asleep, obviously. But yeah, this so far is not a fun experience. So I've already had to root this phone because even though it was running Android, they had it locked so you could not install APKs. Cool, whatever. Found a great guide on Reddit on how to root the thing. Got it rooted. Fantastic. Can install APKs now. Oh boy, every time I open YouTube Music, it crashes. And I don't know why. And the web browser is terrible. It's like Android 11 web browser, except more like Android 4 web browser in Android 11. It's not a touchscreen, so you have to use the keyboard and the scroll wheel. And like, for some reason, the scroll wheel just doesn't move certain app elements. So apparently there's some mouse plugin that people made for these because everyone that gets these ends up rooting them so they can install APKs. So I'm going to try to install the mouse plugin. So far this review is not going great in favor of the TCL phone. So I'm here in another hotel for work. It's still only day one of this challenge. I just wanted to give a little update. I mentioned it wasn't a touchscreen. That became a problem when I realized that a lot of apps are just not developed for buttons because we haven't used buttons on phones in years. So yeah, a lot of stuff was unusable. I installed a mouse plugin via the root that I did. Can't get it to work. It works as a mouse, but it won't click. And a non-clicking mouse is basically useless. Could not get YouTube Music to work at all. It installed, but it would not boot. I did get Spotify to boot, but the app was completely unusable. So I finally just gave up and loaded MP3 files onto the SD card that I put in here. So once I'm not on call anymore from work this week, I will be trying to put my AirPods on this, take it to the gym with me, and work out with my local MP3s like it's the old days. So far, this challenge sucks. I was going to do it for 2 weeks. I think I'm only going to do it for 1. I don't mind the T9 dialing. What I mind is that I have no way of voice texting, so I have to T9 dial, even though it's Android-based. Couldn't install my music app, so that threw a wrench in my plans. And unlike most people who do this challenge, I'm not actually looking to decentralize my phone. I'm looking to reduce my screen time and start winning the war of attention with my phone. Okay, so it's been about a week and some change here that I've been using this phone, and I must say, I'm pretty happy to be taking my SIM out of it. I actually put another SIM into it. I'll be using this as my work phone, but that's besides the point. So, as I said, I thought that I was being smart by buying an Android flip phone. This journey started off with me realizing very early on that this phone did not have Google Play services. That's okay, I can live with that. APKs are nothing new. I tried using the web browser on there, it was terrible. So I downloaded an APK on my computer, sent it over to the phone, used the file browser to try to open it, only to find out that this phone does not let you install APKs by default. Luckily, there are a slew of guides that tell you how to root this phone, and it's actually pretty easy. One of the easiest phones I think I've ever rooted. That being said, I had to root this phone to be able to do what I wanted to do, and even that didn't work. So I rooted it, And then the website says the best way to do it was using ADB to just sideload the APKs. Okay, fine. Spun up an ADB instance, was using this phone. The main thing that I wanted to get working on this phone was YouTube Music. YouTube Music is my primary source of music, not because I think it's a good platform. It's honestly terrible and inferior to Spotify in every way, but I already pay for YouTube Premium, and I'm not going to pay for 2 streaming services, even with how much I listen to music. I'll just deal with YouTube Music. I could not, for the life of me, get YouTube Music to actually work on this device. I tried. I really did. It installed just fine. That was not the problem. It wouldn't open. Every time I opened it, it crashed. So then I was like, okay, maybe it needs Google Play services. So I sideloaded that. Still didn't work. Okay, I don't pay for Spotify, but I have a lot of my playlists in Spotify, and I can shuffle, use the DJ, whatever. So I sideloaded Spotify. That app actually did, in fact, boot and actually function on this, which I'm kind of starting to think that YouTube Music has some kind of checksum for a rooted phone, which if that's the case, Google actually go F yourselves. And I don't know if that was my problem or not. Anyway, I got Spotify to work, except no, I didn't. Spotify opened, but then that was about it. You see, this phone, as I mentioned earlier in one of my other clips, does not have a touch screen. Normally you'd be thinking, well, that's the whole point, right? It's a dumb phone, it's a flip phone. Right, except not a single Android app that's been built in, I don't know, the last 15 years has any kind of support for buttons. So, like, even in Spotify, I was trying to use the D-pad here to cycle down to my playlist, and it was just hopping between 2, like, software buttons. It would not go anywhere else. So then one of the rooted things I was looking into actually adds a mouse cursor to this. I got that to work, except also not really. Because when I went to try to use it, the mouse was moving around on the screen, but it wouldn't click. Every time I kept clicking, it wouldn't click. And I know it's not a phone issue, because when I use this Bluetooth keyboard, I was able to click. When I plug it into my computer and use a screen sharing through the Android device bridge, I can also click. That doesn't help me, because I don't really want to carry this around with me, or have a laptop with me. So Spotify didn't work. So what I ended up resorting to, I just ended up loading a bunch of MP3s out of my collection. Now, because I was on call for work the entire week that I was using this phone, I also did have my smartphone on me. So when I went to the gym the couple of times I was actually able to last week, the main reason I bought this Android device was so that way I could get YouTube Music to work, so I could just take this and my AirPods to the gym and start kind of getting off the, the doom scrolling. Because that was the goal. I know a lot of people that do the flip phone challenges. They do it to stop doom scrolling, as well as I've seen a lot of people doing it so they can decentralize their phone. I do not actually have a desire to decentralize my phone. Let's give a story on that. When I was younger, I did not have, like an MP3 player growing up or anything like that. I had a CD player for the longest time. I did not get any kind of MP3 player that I can remember, at least, up until I was maybe, I want to say, like 9 or 10-ish. I saved up birthday and Christmas money, and it was also part of the gift as well. I got myself an iPod Touch 2nd generation. That was the one without the camera. That was the one right before the camera ones, which is good because no child needs a camera and a smartphone attached to the internet. Parents, please stop giving your children unfiltered access to the internet. Anyway, I had an iPod Touch, which at the time was great. I had all my music on there. I was buying music through iTunes. I had it all there. I could stream. Well, not that streaming was really big back then, but there were YouTube downloaders as well back in the day that used to work real well. So, it was working out real good for me. And then I could call as long as I was on Wi-Fi. I found this app called Text Free by a company called Pinger, and I think they got bought out by someone, and I don't know if the app still exists, but it was free and it gave you a phone number. As long as I was on Wi-Fi, I could call and text. So from very early on, I had a device that did everything I needed it to do. But social media wasn't as big when I was that young. Then, when I was about 12-ish, my grandmother passed away, and because I started staying home alone, my family decided to give me her old phone, which was an Android smartphone. It was a Samsung Moment. If you're old enough to have had one of those, we're friends. But anyway, I am not looking to decentralize my phone. I actually very much like that my propaganda rectangle has all my stuff. It has my music, my maps, my calls, my texts. My main goal with this was to stop doom scrolling, or at least cut it down, right? I don't want to decentralize my phone. I want to win the attention battle with it, because this guy, this propaganda rectangle, constantly dings, vibrates, and beeps. When I am not on call for work, this guy is on silent. I just feel it vibrate and check it randomly. The problem is those notifications will suck you in. They get you. And I've even tried to turn off notifications from my social media apps. But you get bored, they're there, you know they're there, you start doom scrolling. Next thing you know, it's 2 days later and you don't even know what zip code you're in. You know, doom scrolling is becoming a big problem. I was trying to win the attention battle. Now, from that perspective, this phone actually did great, because even though I was still carrying this phone with me, I wasn't using it. I committed mostly to only using it for work stuff and GPS. The only time I did pull this out and use it was every once in a while when I would go to the bathroom, I would doom scroll a little bit on Instagram. However, this guy, my friends kept sending me memes, and because all my friends are in various states of having social media or not, or they use burner accounts constantly, we don't share memes through the platform that we want to share them on. We just text each other the memes. But like sometimes you get someone who sends a TikTok and nobody has TikTok because we don't want to use it, but we watch it on the web, or you get an Instagram reel or YouTube short. It's just easier this way. But this guy, because it's so utterly terrible to watch any kind of content on or use the web browser, because the web browser is the only way you're watching anything on this, I just didn't open them. I missed a lot of messages from my friends because I just didn't open them. I saw they were memes and I was like, cool, I bet it's funny. I'm not opening it, because half the time, like if it's Instagram or YouTube, or Facebook's a real bad one about it, you have to tap to enable sound. This phone does not have a touchscreen. Luckily, if you double tap the center button on that D-pad, it does actually seem to recognize that as like a unmute. And it worked about 50% of the time. I just gave up and stopped opening the link. So as far as not getting me to doom scroll as much, it absolutely did work for that. But that's the only thing it did work for me. Now, I said this in another clip. There's another phone that I was looking at when I started this experiment. It has a touchscreen. It was more expensive. It's $130 compared to this one was like $40. I didn't want to spend the money for an experiment. So if you guys want to see a part 2 where I spend the money on that and see if the higher end one with a touchscreen is worth it, it's still a 4:3 screen, so you're not really going to watch a whole lot of content, but it should get rid of the issues I had trying to get my music apps. Plus, I know that phone supports loading apps to it because I read the reviews. I should have read the reviews for this one. The problem is everyone who buys these wants just a dumb phone. T9 dialing. So I'm old enough to remember when we had the T9 dial, even though I didn't personally have to do it because my first phone had a slide keyboard and not a T9 dialer, because I didn't have a phone until, you know, the keyboards were out. T9 dialing slowed me down so much, especially with this being my personal SIM. I was sending short messages, one-word replies, or I was just calling people. What really irked me about this experience was, again, this is an Android phone. It's based on the Android open source project, which Google's probably going to get rid of because they're going all dictator on us. But this phone does not have any form of voice control. There's no assistant. There's no voice to text. So many of the texts that I wanted to send, that if this thing, as it should, had voice to text, I would have been able to just hit a button, talk into the phone, and send it. Nope, that didn't work. I could have done voice messages, right? Because on my smartphone, I use the Google Messages app, and it supports voice messages. And me and my friends actually frequently send voice messages back and forth because we're usually driving or whatever. It's easy to just hit the button, say what we need, it sends, they listen to it, or they can read it through the transcription, and then they either send one back or send a text back. I could not, for the life of me, get Google Messages to work on here. It installed and it opened, and I was able to read texts. And that was about it. I could not log into my account, so I could not link this to a web browser, which really sucked. Because again, my personal SIM was in here. So like my family and friends were texting and calling me on this. Basically, I'm chalking this up to a failed experiment. This was not the device that I personally should have gotten. I'm not saying that this is a bad device, by the way. If you want a dumb phone, like the best dumb phone that you can get for the money, this is not bad. I did not have any problems with the speed. It seemed real snappy. It came with all the animations turned off. Like I mentioned in the unboxing part of this video, the casing very clearly has micro USB cutout, but they have changed it so it has USB-C, which is very nice to see. Battery life was fantastic. It's just running a tiny little MediaTek chip, and the thing only has 1 gig of RAM. It just sips power. The other thing I really enjoyed, and I forgot how satisfying this was, hanging up on people with a flip phone is the best, right? Whether you're mad at them or not, there's just something so satisfying about just, no, we're done. So yeah, for me, this was a failed experiment. I'm happy that I have my SIM back in my phone. I want to talk about the actual phone, right? Because I spent a lot of this talking about my personal experience with the device. Am I still recording? Yeah, we're good. I spent a lot of this video talking about my personal experience with this device. I want to talk about the phone. It has a headphone jack. It has Wi-Fi. It has Bluetooth. The screen is decent, although when I rooted it, I did use a little command to force the resolution to be slightly higher, and it makes a difference. There's 2 launchers on it because I have it rooted. So that's the phone's, like normal default launcher. It has a couple of apps, no big deal. And then if I come over here and I hit this button, this will load, and now I have a list of apps that weren't there before. That's another little kicker, because you have to root this phone to install any apps. The launcher does not respond to any apps that were not pre-installed. So you have to install a third-party launcher. Not great if you want to actually have some modern features. Now, I do know some people have gotten Google Maps on this because there's a whole website dedicated to like getting these phones modified and whatnot. I found a lot of the tools that I used, the routing guide, a lot of that stuff was on a single website. And I will link that website down in the description in case you guys want to pick one of these up and you're interested in messing around with it. That website did claim that they got Google Maps to work. I didn't try it because I had my smartphone, and in my work vehicle, I use Android Auto. I wasn't even going to try to get Android Auto to run on this thing with 1 gig of RAM and its sad little MediaTek processor. But again, if you guys want a dumb phone, if you're one of those people where you want to stop doom scrolling, you don't mind T9 dialing and some headache, and you really don't mind decentralizing, because if you're picking one of these up, you should really have a music device and a gaming device. I have a gaming device, that's not a problem. But I don't much like the idea of carrying a separate device for music. I really enjoy having access to not only all my music, but all of the new music that's coming out, anything I don't know. I like a lot of different genres of music, and I'm the type of person, if someone recommends a song, I will absolutely throw it in my queue and listen to it and see if I like it. So I do enjoy being connected. I'm just gonna have to find another way to win the attention battle with my phone. Because as much as I do enjoy scrolling Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or whatever, it eats a lot of time, and it is pretty bad for your brain. Okay, this video, again, sounded really negative until the end. I don't think this is a bad device. I'm not ripping on TCL here. For what it is, this is a great device. My only complaint was that I had to root it just to install APKs. If you're going to advertise an Android smartphone, please give me some level of Android level. Although, like I said, with how Google's going, Android is just becoming locked down. The camera, by the way, on this is terrible. Absolutely terrible. One of the worst cameras I think I've ever used in the last 10 years. Don't use it. I'll throw the selfie that I took up. That was in good lighting, by the way. Like, that's in my office, and I even went outside and took a selfie, and it wasn't that much better. So it's not a lighting issue. It's just a really bad sensor. But if you're buying something like this, you probably already have a DSLR or camera. It's a good phone, it's a good product, and it's a really good price. It's just not good for me. If you want to still have a connected life, but just kind of stop doom scrolling, this is not what you want. You do not want this. If you want to decentralize a bit, you want to go back to the old style, it wasn't bad. I used it for a week, it was not bad. I wanted to use it for 2 weeks, and if I could have gotten YouTube Music to work, I absolutely would have used this for 2 weeks. But I enjoyed the little screen on the outside because I could see who was calling. I could see when there was a text. Yeah, I'm not complaining. This thing's been great. For what it is and all the shortcomings, it's been great. It did its job, got me to stop doom scrolling a bit. Even if it did enrage me multiple times with its just sheer stupidity, because if I can't load apps without rooting it, it doesn't have voice to text. I can't get Google Messages to work, so I can't link it to a computer to send text messages and voice notes. Basically, I can't do anything that an Android phone should be capable of. Why is it even running Android? It feels like this phone was never intended to actually be considered Android. It feels to me like TCL just didn't want to make their own OS, so they just stripped Android of everything they possibly could to save resources and just shipped ASOP with this. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to, but don't classify this as a smart flip phone if it's basically the equivalent of a flip phone that my grandmother had when I was like 10. And I mean that because literally, even now that it's rooted, if I want to install an app, I have to plug it into my laptop and sideload the app using ADB. First off, if you're looking for a phone like this, you probably don't know what a lot of those words mean. So yeah, it's hard for me to say that this is a great choice. It's a good choice if you're looking for something very specific. If you're looking for a phone that can text and call, and that's about it. That's about all this is good at. It sounds great. The speaker's good. The mic sounds good. Everyone I talked to that I asked said that this sounded pretty good. It's just not the right device for me. But like I said, if you guys want to see a part 2 to this video where I pick up the more expensive phone, I need you to drop that like and a comment, right? I need to know because $130 is expensive for a test. I know I spend a lot of stupid money on things, but those things I at least know will give me some joy. This thing has been nothing but a pain in the ass, except when I get to slam it on somebody. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It has been a crazy week for me. Like I said, I was carrying 2 phones, but I was really trying to be disciplined and not use my smartphone for anything not work related, or when I was outside of work, I was trying to only use this and play games on my GPD. I did have my iPad with me too. I cheated because I did have my iPad with me. I went out because I was out of town for a little bit when I was on call. I went out on the balcony of my hotel. I had this with me and I had my phone on the coffee table and I was using my iPad to read some passages from the Bible and kind of scroll through like Facebook and stuff a little bit. I don't consider that cheating because I had to physically grab another device, right? I didn't use my phone, didn't use my smartphone. I couldn't do it on here. So I don't technically think that's cheating, because like I'm always going to have a laptop and a tablet with me. Again, this wasn't about decentralization. This was about trying to not doom scroll, as well as it was a fun little experiment. I did have fun with it. For how much it enraged me at times, I did have some good fun. And a lot of people gave me some really interesting looks when I whipped the flip phone out in 2025. Guys, I am Dylan, the Technigiz guy. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. I have a video coming soon. I have a couple of videos actually in the pipeline, so stay tuned for that. One of them in particular, though, I'm really happy about. It's still in the process of being worked on, so I'm not going to spoil it. But we have a couple of videos in the pipeline, and I think you guys will enjoy them. So this was a fun challenge. It was interesting for me, especially given that I did not grow up with a flip phone. The closest thing to a flip phone I had was, again, my Samsung Moment that I had as my first phone. It was a slider. I had a keyboard, right? Which I kind of miss. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I do miss having a physical keyboard. Anyway, see you guys in the next video. Till then, keep it peaceful.